Here is a drawing I made of old Sir Crocodile, and just thought it would be fitting, certainly, because he's very heavy into this chapter here. And boy, I tell you, you love to hate this mother, this son of a pig. One Piece, chapter 178, Grand Line Level.
Man, it is really hard not to just hate this mother. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the grimy and grisly tale of One Piece. Our last chapter, of course, saw us with starting out Volume 20, and really just the whole focus being on Luffy fighting, Crocodile. But him really just toying with Luffy, and really us just kind of finally being able to see, the full extent of his powers. And really, I thought I had a good sense of it, and at the end of the chapter, he went to say something to Luffy, and Luffy busted him in the face, and then said, what, you got something to say? Just to kind of irritate him. And so that's how the chapter left off, and this one begins, and it really is, it's just a shit show as far as showing the full strength of the Shichibukai. I don't know about the other warlords. I mean, obviously we've seen a taste of it with Mihawk, but man, this chapter goes to show you Oda's creativity and really gives you a sense and a feeling of how small you could be in this world. Immediately, as the chapter starts out, he winds up telling Luffy, enough of this toying around, because he was just, of course, screwing with him, just toying with him, and and he winds up, talking to him a little bit as he's, kind of monologuing, I like to call it, as the villains do. And then he winds up finally starting to fight back, and he does this desert spada, and it's this cool looking thing where he whips his arm down, and I don't know if he turns it into sand or what, but it winds up just pretty much just slicing the desert in half. I mean, it just parts it like the Red Sea, and Luffy's able to jump out of the way and go, whoa, and he's like, yeah, it'd be a little more than whoa if that wound up hitting you if you didn't get out of the way. And then he winds up going and doing this thing where he basically creates like this, I forget exactly what he calls it, but then his next move is he goes and he creates this thing that's basically like almost like a whirlpool in the sand. He like creates quicksand. And Luffy's like, oh my god, what the hell? And as he's getting pulled in. And then Croc starts explaining what his powers are. And he's like, first of all, I work constantly on honing my devil fruit power. So that's the big difference between him and some other idiots that have the devil fruit power. And this really goes to show and showcase and highlight what many of you have told me, is that the devil fruit is only half the battle. It's really, the powers that get developed and the strength of it is how creative and how much the user works, right? And I guess that's like to be said with anything. You can have a God-given talent at something, for instance, me with drawing, right? But if I don't cultivate and work on that, then I'm just somebody who has a talent to draw. But if I work on it all the time, maybe I could be somebody who's just really, really great, and that can be said with anything, with sports or, schooling, video games, inventing, whatever, you think of it, you name it, and it's something that if you have a talent for it or you develop that talent, you can certainly become, just superstar level with it. So that's where Croc is. He explains, too, that he can create any weapon from, obviously from the sand and what have you. So I still kind of like to know why he's got a hook, though. Because if he can create anything and turn it into sand, why doesn't he just have a hand? Is the hook just there to look menacing? Does he really have a hand underneath it? It's just a fake hook? I don't know. But these are the questions that keep me out of the really good schools. Or at least did for a time anyway. But so he tells us that his power, like when he, for instance, does the that little swirly whirlpool quicksand dealy, he talks about how he was able to locate the sand, the wet sand, and basically suck the dry sand in down. That's how quicksand is caused, and that's how it pulls you down in. But he was easily able to locate that with his power, and then of course just being able to see the different types of weapons that he uses. So Luffy winds up going and then saying he goes gum gum bazooka, and he's able to propel himself out of the quicksand, and then he goes and he's able to to hit him a few more times. Or no, that's what it was. As he's coming down, he's just like, okay, well, if I can't hit you, because Luffy's like beside himself, like he's not giving in, because that's just not Luffy, but he's like also like I don't know how to hurt this guy. I can't hit him, So then Luffy goes, and as he's coming down, he does the gum finger net, where he goes and intertwines his fingers or whatever and gets around him. And, and of course, as he goes around, Croc just turns the sand and comes out of it, right? And he's like, enough of this toying around, And then as Luffy goes in and hits the ground or whatever, or falls down on the ground, what have you, he goes and he does this, this desert cutlass, and he's and just right on Luffy's right arm, right? And Luffy's like, oh man, he looks over and he's like, my arm. And I'm thinking, oh shit, he cut his arm off, right? And you look at his arm and like from the elbow down, it's all like really skinny, like skinnier than like 10 times skinnier than Luffy normally is. And he's like, that's my power, you know what I mean? Is that basically I can go into the power of the sand is that I can draw the water, the moisture out of everything, and basically it'll eventually take over your whole body and you'll just be a mummified, corpse or what have you, that I can kind of add to my, my checklist of people that I've messed up. So, again, these are just things that are demonstrating how powerful this guy really is, and then that's really what this chapter, I think, is about, this one as well as the last one. I mean, the last one, you had some hope that Luffy could do something to him, hopefully. In this chapter, it's just like, we're going to take all that hope away. Here's the rug. I'm going to pull it out from under you, because that's really what's happening at this point. And he even says, he goes, no one can match my power, especially in like a sand battle, a desert battle, So I don't know where we got to fight the guy, in a tropical jungle or something, maybe, in a house made of glass. But, bottom line is that we're going to have to figure out how to take this guy out in the next 30, 40 chapters before this arc ends. So, enough about that, though. So then he goes in, and of course, Luffy's got the dried up arm and everything, and he's like, no. And so Luffy runs over, and he grabs that little barrel of water that Toto gave him from Yuba, right? And he's like, and he drinks it up, man, and then he just, boom, he just Popeyes his arm, right? And he's just got this huge gun. It's like he drew veins sticking out of it and everything. It's great, Looks like a bodybuilder. And Croc kind of is like making fun of him, like, yeah, what is your deal? This is futile, it's hopeless. And he's just like, no, he goes, that old man in Yuba gave me some of this water and said, and he's glad that he saved it for this occasion to obviously rehydrate himself, And so he's still trying to come at Croc. Croc goes and winds up, and of course, I also forgot to mention this a few chapters ago, but Croc wound up talking about how his power, he can create sandstorms and shit. He's the one that constantly has been making sure sandstorms have hit Yuba, because it's an oasis, right? So it connects areas of the country. So it's an important part of the country. So in his plot to destroy the country, he wound up going and hitting it with constant barrages and sandstorms, which eventually caused the water to get buried, things to dry up, and then, of course, people to leave, all but Toto, the old man, who's still there digging, trying to get, uncover the water that was once there. So I thought that was significant, because then he goes and he starts to go and swirl up another sandstorm, a twister, if you will, what have you, And then we go and we kind of see over in Rain Base, we see, some of the people that are there still, and they're just like, oh my God, there's a huge sandstorm. We see Smoker, Tashigi, those ones in particular. And, oh, there's a sandstorm, this and that. And then somebody mentions that, no, it's heading south, right? Or the wind is blowing south or something, so it's not going to actually hit us, right? Because they're looking east to where Luffy and and Croc are, of course, and this thing's gonna head south or whatever. So, and then we go and we kind of see from the perspective further on east, of course, on the crab, we see Vivi and them looking back, and she's like, oh my God, a sandstorm, and she's like, and she knows it's got to be Croc, and that's what she says. She knows obviously what some of his powers are, and then she's like, it's headed south, right? So then we go and we go back to Croc and Luffy. And Luffy, of course, is directionally challenged. We know that he doesn't know where he's going, even with a map. But, so Croc goes and he's just like, yeah, this is going to build up and it's heading south. What's south? And Luffy just kind of has this look on his face because he doesn't know. And then Croc's like, Yuba. So basically, this is his way of saying, screw you, Luffy. I'm going to take out the whole town and the old man that was there that gave you your water. So I'm going to destroy everything, that you even think remotely about. I'm going to take it out. And he says that by the time this thing builds, it's going to be a cataclysmic storm. It'll just completely wipe Yuba off the face of the planet, right? I mean, that's what he alludes to. And Luffy's just like, he's pissed off, so now he's going to still come at him again. But Luffy goes and he says, you leave him out of this. You leave that. That dried up old man didn't do anything to you. You're going to stop this now, and you stop this. And he's ordering Croc what to do, right? And as he goes and he does that, we go and we see the next panel, and Luffy's like face to face with him, just like nose to nose almost, And you see like the little word bubble underneath that says shunk, and you're like, oh, what the hell, right? And then it goes and it shows us in the next couple of pictures, and it shows this cool it's this cool silhouette picture, kind of like the one where Arlong shot Bell Mare, and it's just you just see like the black outlines. Except for this one is Croc, all just hulking and huge with his like fur coat cape thing, and he's got his one arm up, his hook arm, right, and he's got his hook arm up, and it's gone right through Luffy. It looks like right through his midsection over there, and there's blood dripping, and it's just a sad looking picture because then you see Luffy like only one of his sandals is dangling off, and he's just sitting there like, you know. So Luffy has definitely been wounded. He has been hurt. It is not looking good for him, and that's how the chapter ends. Is him going and saying, you're nothing. A straw hat, a little upstart like you. That you're a dime a dozen, right? And I've shit bigger than you is basically what he's saying. And who are you to tell me what to do? And this is kind of where the whole I'm better than you comes into play, and I'm the bigger swinging what here. And really, that's kind of what I got from it. So ultimately, it was a good chapter, but it was also, I mean, it's just the stuff that draws you in, man. I mean, I read this and I was just like getting just chills down my spine, just from just the excitement and just the anger and the hatred that was building up towards this Croc, So. So basically, what my chapter question is going to be over here, because obviously they're out in the middle of the desert. We don't know what's going to happen to Luffy or to Croc or to anything else, or anyone else is. If you can tell me a little bit about Croc's powers, now that we know and that they've been revealed, for instance, how does he go and travel to Alabarna from here? Is he able to just turn into like sand and fly through the air? That's some of the questions like that. That's really one of the main things that I was thinking of. I mean, now that he has this power, of course, I mean, is he able to just pretty much just turn into sand and let the wind take him somewhere, or is he able to create like a sand motorcycle and ride off through the woods? Since he can, what are the extent of his powers? And if you can't tell me because it is too much of a spoiler, then hey, no problem. Just leave a comment as usual. Those are always nice to see and to read. And if you can tell me, then great, please do, and leave it in the comments down below, brothers and sisters. Feel free to hit that thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I mean, why not, right? We look forward to catching you in the next one, Nation.
As always, brothers and sisters, thank you so much for liking, commenting, rating, sharing, subscribing, and just spreading the word of the nation. Here's a little picture of Luffy.